Hello my dears, welcome back to my channel, and I have dressed myself like a walking talking pride flag because it is Pride Month, and while the parades may be cancelled, we can still enjoy the comfort of queer literature from the safety of our homes. So I'm coming in with some hot takes on buy books for Pride Month. Now obviously, quick note on vocab, if you are pansexual this applies to you as well. I have reasons for identifying as bi rather than pan. They have nothing to do with attraction to non-binary people and more to do with the fact that I'm old and pansexual didn't exist when I was grappling with my sexuality. So anyway, let's get into the video. So the first book that I would like to recommend to the bisexuals out there is the House of Shattered Wings series by Alia Tay Bedard. This is an urban fantasy post-apocalyptic thing with a bunch of angels who fell to the earth and essentially caused World War III. It is set in war-torn Paris. The angels that live in Paris have set up like a system of houses with they're essentially kind of like mafia families, but the angels themselves are very what is a gender? They take lovers of many genders. They themselves are very gender fluid. Like there was one that I think was a trans angel. I haven't read this in a while, but essentially they like were born, or they like fell to the earth and had one type of body, and then they decided that that wasn't right for them and switched to another type of body. So yeah, they're super queer. This whole series is super queer. There's a specifically bisexual character in book 2 besides the angels, like a human one. And this series is super great, and I love the mixture of Christian mythology and Vietnamese mythology because the writer herself is biracial of French and Vietnamese, and so this plays very much into those two schools of thought, shall we say. The next book I would like to recommend is Swords Point and Privilege of the Sword by Ellen Kushner. These are slightly older fantasy. The first one came out in the 80s at some point. Yeah, copyright 1987. So this one is old. It shows its age a little bit in that there are like no people of color, but it's a super bi-normative world. Both of the main characters, while it is a relationship between two men, they're both super bisexual. It's mentioned explicitly that one of them has had a female lover. There are many people that take lovers of many different genders. And Privilege of the Sword specifically is bi women friendly because the main character has her own little bisexual awakening throughout the book. This is more of a coming of age story, whereas this one is more like political machinations. This one does take place after this one, but you can kind of read them in any order because this one takes place, I want to say like 30 years after the events of this one, so they don't really cross over a whole lot. There are some characters that do. Swords Point and Privilege of the Sword particularly great for bis. The next book on this recommendations list is one that I'm slightly cheating. It is the Queen's Thief series. No, there are no bisexual characters in here explicitly on the page, but I, a bisexual person, love this book for bisexual reasons, in that I love many people of many genders. Also, you cannot convince me that The Thief Eugenides is anything other than a walking bisexual disaster. Like, I'm sorry. He may have been in love with the same woman since he was 12, but he is still a bisexual disaster, and I will stand by that. This series I've talked about, I think, in the last 3 to 4 videos. It has some elements of like con stories, like con artist stories. These are super fun. The sparseness of the writing makes the emotions super impactful. Trust me on this one. All right, the next series that I am wrecking for bis is the Spirit Walker trilogy. This one I think doesn't get explicitly queer until the 3rd book, but this is one of those situations where I, a bisexual person, love both halves of the heterosexual romantic couple that is the main couple of this series, so I think that it counts anyway. Also, there is a bi secondary character who does not die, has a happy ending, and is confirmed as bi in book 3. He is delightful. I love Rory so much. It seemed like she got to book 3 of this trilogy and then just went, fuck it, everyone's queer, which, you know what, I'm here for. The next recommendation is for a couple things by the same author. The first is In Other Lands by Sarah Reese Brennan. This one has been talked about a lot. I think this one's really popular. And everyone who has talked about it has said that Elliot, the grouchy bisexual main character, is amazing. I love Elliot. This is a standalone book and it tracks Elliot from ages, I want to say like 13 to 17, I think, through his adventures at this like magical school that he got whisked away to. So this one's really popular. I want to talk about another series that gets way less hype on the internet, which is the Lindburn Legacy by Sarah Reese Brennan. I have a couple different covers for this one. This is not the cover that you can find anymore, but the first book is called Unspoken. This is a modern day gothic romance set in a small town in England. This one is super spooky and heartbreaking and super emotional, and I love it so much. It also has a really lovely queer romance that develops over the course of these 3 books and develops really naturally. They are slightly secondary characters, although one of the halves of the relationship is a point of view character starting in book 2. So if you read In Other Lands and enjoyed it and want more Sarah Reese Brennan bisexual stuff, you gotta check out the Lindburn Legacy, my dudes slash gals slash non-binary pals. Sorry, I'm Californian. We tend to use dude as a non-gendered term, but I get that not everyone agrees with that, so. Moving right along, the next book that I would like to recommend is The Summer Prince by Elia Dawn Johnson, I want to say. This is a Brazilian solar punk post-apocalyptic novel thing. I really enjoyed this book. I did it on audiobook, which I don't necessarily recommend because the accents of the audiobook readers are very inconsistent and can kind of throw you out of the story. But it is another one where the world is just super bi-normative. People don't expect people to only be attracted to one gender. There's a situation where the main character's mother ended up remarrying after the main character's father died, and she ended up remarrying a woman, and this is just like not a thing. It is also a super matriarchal society. This one is a little bit of just like trashy fun. I don't know that it will like change your life, but I did really enjoy it. All right, next up on here is The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. I'm really hoping that this starts getting more hype, this series, now that the 5th season is super popular. So this was the first book series that I read by N.K. Jemisin, and also, incidentally, the first series she ever published. But this one is about, it's essentially about divinity and about gods. Each book in the series takes place like centuries after the events of the first one, because gods are the main characters and gods are immortal, so it doesn't matter to them that it's been like 200 years. So this series starts off with a woman named Yena who has been basically pulled from her impoverished northern kingdom to come to the emperor and be named as one of his heirs because she is the daughter of his daughter who is now dead. He already has 2 other heirs. When she points this out to him, he basically tells her that it is a fight to the death between the 3 of them, and he doesn't really care who wins. In the palace, there are multiple gods that have been enslaved as a result of their defeat in a god's war that occurred, I can't remember, more than 2,000 years ago, and they have been imprisoned in the palace of the ruling class ever since then. Nahadoth is the god of darkness, or of night, and you know, he's not always a he. So this one I'm recommending because the gods are super like gender fluid anyway, and you know, if you're attracted to Nahadoth when he's a he, you're probably also going to be attracted to Nahadoth when she's a she. Just saying. There's a lot more I could say about this series in terms of the themes of like the sins of the father being inherited by the children and all that kind of stuff, but really, it's super queer. You should read it anyway. And then talk to me about it, because I read this series in like a week several years ago. This series was actually the first adult fantasy series that I ever did a review video for. I went back and watched it. It was like 6 years old. It was a little bit embarrassing, but tells you that I have been on this train since day one. Okay, so next on the list is Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. There is a bisexual main character in this book, but that's not really why it's on here. Again, this is another one of those where the main romance between the 2 kids that are a man and a woman just feels super queer to me, and I love both of them. I I don't have proof, but Lila's gotta be genderqueer. I mean, come on. And then of course there is Kel's brother Rye, who is a disaster bisexual, and this series is super good. It's super popular, so I don't know how much I need to say about it, but Kel, the main character in book 1, is a Antari, that's the word for it, where he is able to travel between multiple parallel versions of London, one of which is ours, one of which is his homeland, one of which is White London, which is where like magic is dying, and then Black London is the one that got sucked up by dark magic and we don't talk about it. Anyway, Rye is an adorable bi baby, and I, a bisexual, have determined that it counts on this list of bi books because I say so. Okay. So, next on this list is another author who's written a couple things. Careful! Okay, here we go. It's a delicate operation. Anyway, I would like to recommend the Ann Leckie Ancillary series and then her spin-off Provenance. Ann Leckie loves fucking with gender in her books. So the main character of Ancillary Mercy, it's told all from her perspective, is essentially an agender AI. She comes from a culture that does not use gendered pronouns and does not have really any gender distinctions. And therefore, when she has to speak in a language that does require gendered pronouns, she defaults to she, which leads to some very funny exchanges where she'll be speaking in a language that requires gender, and she'll say something like, "Oh, I was talking to your sister." And the person that she's talking to will give her a look, and she'll be like, "Your brother?" Because she just like doesn't see gender. She doesn't know like what the gender markers are. She doesn't know who's supposed to be what gender because she's just like, what even is a gender? So this one is super great. And then also Provenance is from the perspective of a person from a different culture, but in her culture, every child is born with essentially a non-gendered identity, and then at their sort of like coming of age, they pick which gender they want to be, and there are 3 genders that they can pick from, which is man, woman, and ne-man, which is just like a 3rd gender. And even within this system, there manages to be someone that I would describe as non-binary, even though it's really more like non-trinary. But anyway, this is another one where since there are multiple genders, like straight and gay is just not really a thing. People are just attracted to people. And also the main couple in this is super queer and one half of them is that character that was like, I didn't really know which one I was supposed to pick. None of them seemed right. How did you know that you needed to pick woman? And she's just like, I don't know, I just did. And then the other one is just like, yeah, that didn't happen for me. So anyway, love this series. Love the way she fucks with gender. This one is like a murder mystery thriller. And then the Ancillary series is, God, how do I even describe this? Taking down an empire? Yeah. Taking down an evil empire. Okay, so last on my personal list, although I did put out a call on Twitter to see what other people's suggestions were, and I have some of their recommendations, but the last one that I thought of is the Have Mercy series by Jada Jones and Daniel Bennett. This one is just super trashy, queer fun. I don't super have an explanation for it. I'm missing book 1. I lent it out to a friend like years ago. Who knows if I'll ever get it back. I should probably just buy a new one. But each book of the quartet has a different set of narrators. So there are 4 narrators in each book and essentially 2 parallel storylines. So you're getting, so like in the first one, there are 2 very clear storylines and you get 2 characters in each storyline. Some of them vary from that a little bit, but it's still pretty much 4 narrators per book. There is a wide variety of types of narrators. There are gay men, there are queer people, is a trans woman in here. It just is super trashy and fun. It's a fantasy about sassy alchemical robotic dragons that people fly into combat. Don't take anything in it too seriously, but it's super fun. Okay, this next set of books came from Maddie the Book Pusher. The first of these is Six of Crows, which like I own and have read. Why did I not think of this? Yeah, I'm a little bit embarrassed that I had to be reminded by someone else to include Six of Crows and fuck, whatever the second one is. I read it on audiobook in this list of bi books because there is a very bisexual character in this one. In fact, there are multiple. Nina is bi, don't come for me. This is like one of BookTube's darlings, so probably you've already heard of it, but high story, big diverse cast of characters, super queer and fun. It's only 2 books in the series, so won't take you a super long time. Definitely check this one out. Okay, so the next like 4 or so, I haven't read at all, so I don't have a ton to say about them, but we have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I think is the title. I hear that the main character in this is bisexual. I'm interested to check this one out, but I haven't gotten to it. We then also have God's Grave by Jay Kristoff. I have read the first one of this series, Nevernight. I have not yet gotten to God's Grave, so I am guessing that Mia turns out to be bi, or there's something of that nature. I don't really know why she put this one on here, but it's on there. The next one is Red, White, and Royal Blue. I read the first like couple chapters of this one, and then the friend that had lent it to me needed it back, and I don't have another copy, so I haven't finished it, but it did seem really delightful. It's just one of those like queer, rompy, rom-com kind of things, and I'm guessing that, I think it was Alex, the president's son, I'm guessing that he's bisexual, he reads as that type. And then the final recommendation from Maddie was Magnus Bane as a character. I know that this is from Shadowhunters. I have not read or watched any Shadowhunters stuff beyond like 2 episodes of that terrible TV show. So yeah, I like Harry Shum Jr. I think that his eyeliner was done very badly in the first couple episodes. Maybe they straightened out his makeup situation, but I don't really have any other thoughts beyond that. And then finally, we have just another couple random recommendations from people on Twitter. The first is Parasol Protectorate by Gail Carriger. I read like 3 chapters of the first book and it just wasn't to my taste, but it doesn't have to be to everyone's. And supposedly it's bisexual. I have no other information on this one. And then finally, another friend of mine said that trashy YA post-apocalyptic reads is very bisexual to her, such as like Divergent or The Hunger Games. Again, sure. In just like a everyone is hot kind of way, I think I can see where she's coming from on that one. But that is going to be it for my bi reads for Pride Month. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you're doing for Pride since Pride is canceled, or if you've somehow found my channel and you're straight. I don't know, just tell me what you're reading lately. But that is gonna be it from me, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye!